Alrighty. So, hi guys, welcome. This is our fireside chat, and I am Destiny, and I'm here with Gina and Alexa. Today, we're going to be discussing multiculturalism and its many facets. But first, let's introduce ourselves, starting with myself. I was born in Yokosuka, Japan, to a white American father and Japanese mother. We moved to the States when I just turned 6 and I didn't know any English. To even worse in the situation, I was enrolled in a 90-10 Spanish immersion school, so I didn't know Spanish either. It was confusing at first, but all in all, it was a good experience. I th and I think I turned out okay. Uh, Growing up, though, English was not my best subject. I think it was my weakest one, in fact. And I always thought that like being from another country and kind of like um just like knowing multiple languages was kind of like the reason why I wasn't really good at English. But in my sophomore year of high school, I met my favorite teacher, Mr. Reyes, and he really like opened my mind up to the subject and like taught me that it can be fun and it's not something to be afraid of. And now I'm here. I have my bachelor's in English, and hopefully, I'll be a teacher and do the same thing, teach English. Yeah.
Yay.
Let's go to Alexa.
Thank you for sharing. Hi, guys. My name is Alexa, and I'm a Mexican American Latina born here and raised in South San Diego. My mom was born in Tijuana and came to the United States when she was like around 7. And my dad was born here, but both his parents are from Sinaloa, Mexico. I grew up speaking both English and Spanish, but as I got older, especially when I started school, my Spanish faded. Even though I was always surrounded by people from my culture, I sometimes felt self-conscious just because I didn't speak the full language. People would tell me I look super Mexican, I should know Spanish, but I just never really caught on to it like that. And then this is something that I feel like a lot of us Chicanos go through, and it's very important that we shine attention to it and we all agree that that shouldn't define our culture. As first generation college student, figuring out things on my own was hard, but it inspired me to become a teacher so I can support students who are in my community who also go through the same thing and feel the same way. And yeah.
Thank you.
Um, thank-
And Gina.
Hi. So I was born and raised in Fontana, California. Um, when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s, I was born in 1974. Not, Majority of my friends in my community did not speak Spanish. We were all identified as being Mexican American, but mostly in my family identified as being Chicano. My grandma raised us to be Chicanos, and we identified with the Chicano culture, um, including like car clubs and just even down to our food. And we spoke a little Spanglish, but I never really uh, learned how to speak Spanish. My parents both spoke Spanish. Their parents both spoke Spanish. My mom's family's from Mexico, but my great grandma immigrated here like late 1890s and with my great grandfather. And no one really knew too much about them, except that my great grandma was half Native American, Mexican, and my great grandfather was Cuban. And so when my great grandmother left, like literally, she had no connection anymore with her family there. So all of our just culture was developed here with my grandparents or for them. And then on my dad's side, they're from New Mexico. They're Spaniards and ranchers, and they speak Spanish. Um, but they didn't teach us because where they grew up in Barstow, California, um, they were bullied for speaking Spanish and made to feel ashamed for their darker skin. And my mom's cousins, I mean, there's probably, I think she said and my great grandma had like 15 kids, so children. So there was a lot of cousins, and none of those cousins taught their children Spanish. It's really sad. Um, Same with my dad and his family. Same. Even though they're not Mexican, they were Spanish. They did not want their kids to learn Spanish, and um, so in my community where I grew up, a lot of my friends didn't, and so it didn't really affect me until I went to college at University of San Diego, and I was like felt like I was always existing in like two worlds. Like, who am I? Like, I thought I knew who I was, but who am I if I'm literally the only person of color in my classes, but yet I'm supposed to speak Spanish, but I'm not supposed to speak Spanish. It just really messed with my identity for a very, very long time, mostly through my 20s. Um, but now that I'm older, I mean, there are many ways I've adjusted and learned how to cope with that because it also affects my identity, even in the workplace, in educational settings. But yeah, that's just a little bit about me. And then I ended up going to school at USD to be pre-med. I did not do well in pre-med, ended up as an English major, taking creative writing courses, got into playwriting and theater, went to grad school for that, moved to San Francisco, New York, ended up back in San Diego. And sometimes I feel like I'm still existing in these worlds, but it just doesn't affect me as much as it used to. So that's just a little bit about me.
Alrighty. Thank you for that. Well, now that we know a little bit more about ourselves, let's begin with the questions. I can start. So my first question is going to be based off the article American Culture by Deshawn Mendez. And in this article, they use the phrase melting pot to describe America. And as someone who is mixed race, I've always thought this was a good analogy for the multi-ethnic culture of America. But Gina, I think when we first got to know each other, like through text, you mentioned how assimilation and melting pot always rubbed you the wrong way. Can I ask how come? And then Alexa, if you could offer your opinions on this as well.
Okay, I'll go first for sure. Um, just a little bit with the information I provided in my background. Where I grew up was very, um, I won't say it was diverse in my community to where there was a lot of Chicanos in my community where we lived. But it definitely, we did not blend in. Everybody stayed in their communities and because it just felt safer. And just also based on the color of my skin, I never felt as though that analogy of melting pot and assimilation works for me. So, by definition, I will just read you real quick. It says the meaning of melting pot is a place where a variety of peoples, cultures, or individuals assimilate into a cohesive whole. And then, by definition, assimilation is the process of adopting the language and culture of a dominant social group or nation, or the state of being socially integrated into the culture of the dominant group in a society. Um, for example, assimilation of immigrants into American life. So for me, by definition, those two words, I feel like I'm counted out because somehow I have to conform to the dominant culture. And what is that dominant culture? If we're all, not if we are all, but if there are immigrants, there's immigrants that come to this country, have been coming to this country. What was the one culture that we were all supposed to be assimilated into? It kind of just kind of to me contradicts or kind of just um, to me doesn't even go align with what immigration is here. Like we're all from different cultures, we're all coming together. So why do we have to be one? Why do we have to assimilate to one dominant culture? And what is that culture? Right?
Hmm.
Like, so that's why it's always rubbing the wrong way. Because
Yeah.
it's like I don't feel like we're all blending in. I mean, this is since I've been growing up. And then now with the current culture, I mean, I definitely don't buy into those. I think it was a way in the beginning. I did use the word assimilation when I was like even writing papers in at USD. But once I kind of like really started experiencing how I should feel like I was assimilating into the culture at University of San Diego, I was not. So I just found it to be very divisive, that word. And that's just from my personal experience from not only in the educational setting, but in my workplace and also just communities I've lived in. And then it's like if we were assimilating and we were in this beautiful melting pot where all our cultures blend in, then why do we have, why do we need programs? I mean, I'm all for them, but why do they have DEI programs, right? It's because people were being left out. So there wasn't a melting pot going on. So that's why it's just always rubbed me the wrong way.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I've
Yeah,
never thought of it like that, so I think this was
yeah,
really insightful. Thank you.
yeah. Coming
Alexa.
coming from someone who's also mixed race, I thought the phrase melting pot was a good analogy to describe America because it's about people coming together from different backgrounds and blending into one. But now that I hear you, I do understand how not everyone can agree with calling America a melting pot because it can be seen as people having to come together and melt into one dominant culture. But what is that culture? And it causes people to lose their own cultural traditions.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Hmm.
totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
Mhm.
Thank you for the question. That was great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah. Now let's move on to a question from Alexa.
My first question is, do you think that avoiding uncomfortable discussions on race, ethnicity, or culture affects our society?
Um,
Mm,
I guess I could answer that
okay.
first. I
Okay.
think, or were you done with your question? Okay, okay. Um, I think it definitely does. I think in the article, uh, what is it? White privilege, I think that one, it talks about how when it comes to like male privilege, the fact that people don't acknowledge that there is male privilege is part of the problem. And so
Mhm.
if people don't acknowledge like um just the fact that there are like different cultures and like I think we should study other cultures in
Yeah,
school, you know? So it's like
yeah.
people
To be
know.
more knowledgeable in
Yeah.
other cultures. Yeah.
Hmm.
And then,
And then, Alexa, I was reviewing your question through
mm-hmm.
our chat. Could you just repeat that one more time
No,
for
yeah,
me,
yeah, yeah,
please?
yeah. What it was, do you think that avoiding uncomfortable discussions on race, ethnicity, or culture can affect our society? Or how does it affect our society? Society.
It 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 definitely affects our
Yeah.
society for sure.
Mhm.
And for as uncomfortable it is to live in it, right? As uncomfortable as it is to feel as though you're a part of a stereotype, it's more uncomfortable to be in a room and not feel seen or heard or acknowledged, right? So having these conversations are so having classes that have these conversations, right? Like not like I'm so happy to have this class, a multicultural education class, but it'd be nice to have like more of these
Mhm.
classes and other subjects, right? Like um I remember at USD when I was pre-med, I had to take a biomedical ethics class. Now you would think it's biomedical ethics, it's philosophy, how to treat people. What's the ethical way? But God, the conversations would get so heated and they were so uncomfortable, but they were so necessary. Um, just to and advancing right in the care of people if you're going to become a doctor. But I think it's just so necessary just for others to feel seen and heard, and even to educate, you know, friends, colleagues, whoever you're having the conversation with. Because maybe just like how we talked about melting pot, now it just provides different perspectives and if you're open to it, you could really just learn, right?
Yeah, I totally
Yeah.
agree. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see. So let's move on to Gina. Did you have a question for us?
I do, I do. So this is relating to the article about white privilege, unpacking the visible knapsack. And the author, Peggy McIntosh, identified 26 ways her white privilege affects her daily life. And then I reviewed her points, and looking at her points, do you agree with any of her points? Are there a few that stood out to either of you, Destiny and Alexa, that made you feel like you were on the receiving end of that, of the white privilege she gets on a daily basis? Has it affected you in your experience in like growing up or educational setting? Have you ever had to deal with that?
I can go. I agree with many of her points, but that she mentioned on white privilege, but one that really stood out to me is when she says, I can go home from meetings of organizations that I belong to feeling somewhat tied in rather than out of place, isolated, outnumbered, unheard, held at distance, or feared. This one stood out to me because I have been on the other end of this statement in an educational setting. Here at state, like sophomore year in a sociology class, I was put in a group discussion with two white girls, one black girl, and then there was me. We had to share our thoughts out loud, but then I noticed that the two white girls were like not really interacting with me and the other girl. Like we shared our thoughts and then we noticed that they seemed to be more engaged with each other rather than us. Like they didn't ask any questions about anything we said and they just turned to each other. So it wasn't really direct exclusion, but it left me feeling out of place. And it was kind of a moment where I felt unheard and like that I was like outnumbered or like distanced out in a group educational setting. Yeah, that's my experience.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, and I feel like I could totally relate to that somewhat
Yeah.
too. One of the points that I read and I felt like I didn't relate to, but like I've definitely received that kind of treatment was on the list it was like number 12 and she's talking about how she gets to swear, maybe even dress down a little and like not have people assume that she has like poor morals or come from poverty. And I've definitely had moments like a specific time I've been kind of like profiled or like assumed I was one way. Um this I remember I was like at the mall and I was just sitting and I was like eating ice cream, I think. But from behind, I guess I look like because I have like kind of like messy curly hair from the back. She thought I was like this homeless kid just like in the food court and she like had something to say about it to the friend that she was with and I was like, "Oh my God." And it was so weird. I was like, I don't know. It was weird and it just sucks that like your appearance, like something you can't really change, kind of like affects how people perceive you. And like I feel like it shouldn't really, people shouldn't trust you more just because you're one race over another. And it just sucks.
I've been kind of feeling that way in my the cohort that I just started. And
Mm-hmm.
um it's really hard when there's, like you said, the like what Alexa was saying, the dynamic of
Mm-hmm.
where you would think in a group of four there would be conversations just kind of like,
Yeah.
and then a group of three, I don't know why sometimes it can create a dynamic of there's two that, this is in class, not obviously in the Zoom, but in class, like, you know, like where two work more together and then you have to work harder to be a part of that group. And then coincidentally, like you're saying, Alexa, it was two white women. And like, I don't, I just often wonder if they are even aware
Yeah,
of how
I think they're
uncomfortable,
aware.
right?
It's weird.
Yeah, it's
It's weird.
I got you on that right
Yeah,
now.
I'm glad you understand. It's
I
weird.
do. I do.
It's weird. Okay.
Cool. Did anyone have other thoughts relating to this question? No? Okay, awesome. Um, Here's another question that I had. And it's based off the Not Mexican Enough video by Rancho Alvarado. And it seemed like both of you really related to the speaker. And even though I'm not Mexican, I related a lot to the sentiments being shared in this video. And firstly, I just couldn't believe that for like the longest time, Mexicans were expected to check off white um, as their race. And another thing that really surprised me was that like most parents are very encouraging of their kids not speaking Spanish and like only speaking English. And this is something that I didn't necessarily experience. And I feel like you guys kind of mentioned something similar. And I think like the two of you kind of relate in some capacity. So I wanted to ask, like how significant do you think language is in identity? And like does knowing a certain language make you more Mexican or more of any other race? What are your overall experiences with that?
I can go. I have a lot of experience with this matter growing up, especially during school. Although there were a lot of those who related to me, there were also those who made comments about not fully speaking Spanish. These comments would come from my own people, and they would tell me I was whitewashed just because I didn't speak the full language. Personally, I don't feel like knowing a language is the most important factor that determines how connected you are to your culture identity. I do believe it is important, but I also feel that traditions, experiences, values are also huge factors to your culture. And then I feel like with that being said, knowing a language shouldn't make you like it shouldn't value how Mexican you are, how much of a culture you are, just because you know a language or you don't know it.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Gina, did you have anything to say?
Yeah, I really like what Alexis said because it shouldn't define you, right? It shouldn't be like, oh, well, you're Mexican because you could speak Spanish. Because it's just interesting to hear Alexa going through kind of the same thing I went through, and I went through it, um, 40 years ago, or, like it's still happening now where it's other people in your communities putting an assumption on you that you should be this kind of person, that you're Mexican, you speak Spanish, you are this way in your culture, and and Mexicans aren't the only people that speak Spanish, and it's just assuming that you have this kind of caricature of your identity. And I mean, it really messed with me for a long time growing up. Not necessarily within my community, because a lot of us, our parents grew up in the same community, and none of them taught their kids Spanish, and it was kind of very racist where I grew up. And but it really affected me, like my mental health, honestly, when I got into undergrad and just left the nest. And I say no, it shouldn't you, make up your identity. um and I just, my experience with it has just been, God, I've tried to take Spanish. Like, I mean, I've taken Spanish. I've taken up to Spanish 4, and I just cannot. I just, unless I'm immersed in it, I just cannot. I just cannot grasp and carry on the language. It's just hard for me, and so now I'm old enough to where I'm like, I am who I am, and I identify with who I am, and it doesn't make me more Mexican or less Mexican. But I think the fact that people always have a comment about it can affect you, and you just have to learn how to tune it out.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for sharing. Um, Alexa, your second question.
Oh, yeah. My second question is, what are common stereotypes you heard about your own culture, ethnicity, or heritage, and where do you think they come from?
Um, I can begin. I think as like someone who's half Asian, I've always grown up being told like, "Oh, you sh you should be smart, no? Like you should know how to do everything, like know how like the answers to things. And I don't necessarily know why that is the stereotype. I also don't know why the stereotype is that like Asian people can't drive. I think they're all just like really, it's weird. Um, I do have like some kind of theories where it's like I know in Japan they drive on the other side of the road, so it might just be like a confusion thing, but like honestly it's not a good excuse. Like people shouldn't be just like stereotyped. Yep.
Thank you.
There's quite a few. Um, some are, this is one I get quite often, and it used to make me so mad, but now I roll my eyes and laugh. Oh, you don't have an accent. You speak so well. Oh, you're so well spoken. Like it's almost as though they see me and they expect my voice to be a certain way. Um, or even my personality is maybe supposed to be, some people are like, oh, you're a lot more mellow than most of the other like spicy Latina women I meet. It's like, wow, okay. So I'm already existing in a totally separate mindset than what someone else that's just walked into the room. You're already assuming I have an accent. I'm uneducated because you think I have an accent. So that stereotype really, really bothers me. And the stereotype of when I was growing up, this happened to me in high school. Um, I wanted, this is before internet days of looking up colleges, and you had to mail in a request to get applications for college. And I remember going to my high school counselor, and she's like, yeah, I have a college application right here for you. And it was for a local community college, which is fine. And I was like, well, I don't want to go to Chaffey College. I want to go to either USD. It was USD, University of Redlands. There was some schools, two schools back east, and then there was Chapman College. And she's like, well, you're from a big family. Don't you want to stay close to home? Because aren't you planning on having a family right after high school? And I was like, well, I'm the youngest of three. I'm going to be the first to go to college, and I don't plan on having any kids anytime soon. So it's that stereotype of you're staying closer to home because you're going to have kids. And really, she doubted my even ability to even be accepted or even engage at a higher education. So that stereotype of not being able to succeed and you're just meant to have kids is one I really don't appreciate.
Yeah, I could relate to that too.
Yeah, that was
Mhm.
that
Thank
was weird.
you.
Um, okay. For some reason, Zoom only lets you record for like 40 minutes at a time, and we still have 6 minutes, but I just want to make sure that Gina has time to ask her
Okay.
last question.
Okay, we can do
Okay.
Yeah.
that.
And
All
then,
right.
yeah.
Here I go. So, um, where am I at? I'm so sorry.
It's
Here we
okay.
go. So question two. So after watching the TED Talk, Not Mexican Enough, Bicultural Identity Struggles. And after reading both of your bios, I learned that we all have been navigating the chaos of staying connected to our cultures and learning new cultures and languages. Knowing what you've experienced growing up and how confusing it can be, what would you say or do for a student who's experiencing either something similar you've gone through or something similar to what um, the TED Talk facilitator Rachel was going through?
Okay, I can go. Knowing that I've experienced many of the things that Rachel went through and discussed in her TED Talk, I know how confusing and difficult it could be when you're trying to understand your own identity when people are telling you so many things. I would reassure the student who is also experiencing these things that they don't need to fit anyone else's version of what being Mexican enough means. I would also tell them how culture isn't just language, it's lived in many ways, such as family, community, traditions. I would also share my own experience, allowing them to feel seen because I also have gone through the same thing and I know how it feels. I would tell them that they should never feel pressured to meet anyone else's standards of what being Mexican means and tell them what they should do, what they want to do that allows them to feel comfortable with their own culture.
Yeah. I think that was beautifully said. like Alexa said, I agree. I would talk about how culture isn't just like knowing the language, it's about the traditions, it's about like everything else, like family, how you're raised, and you shouldn't let someone tell you that you aren't a specific culture or a specific part, like a group, just because you don't know something. Especially because like you can't really help being born where you're born. If you're like me, Japanese American, I can't help the fact that like I've basically lived my whole life here, but like still feel connected to that side of my culture, and I still try to um where I can still try to like use my Japanese so I don't lose it, or try to learn the recipes. I try to spend time with my mom so that she can teach me different aspects of the culture. So I think it's just like try to get to know that side better. Be confident. Like don't feel like you have to hide yourself. Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Those are awesome answers. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think this was a great
Yeah.
chat. Like I'm glad that we all got to work on this
Yeah.
together.
Yeah,
It
me
was really
too.
fun.
That's good.
Um, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for the nice questions and the
Mm-hmm.
answers. It was all really good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, you two. This is a
Yeah.
great assi- This is my first time I've ever done an assignment like this in a group in
Yeah, me
Yeah.
a
too.
podcast.
Me too.
So this is really great learning experience
Yeah.
as well.
Hmm.
Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing. It
Well,
was
like,
nice
Well,
talking.
yeah, definitely.
cool.
Okay.
Are we good on time?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
we are.
we're
Let me
good.
Okay,
s
thank,
Thank you.
thank
All
you.
right, you two
Bye.
have a great rest
Bye.
of your
You too.
day. Thank you for the
Bye.
chat.
Good luck.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye bye.